Alright, so I never thought I'd be posting something like this on here, but here we are. I guess I need both advice and a place to just unload because my brain has been running on overdrive these past few weeks. I've been with my girlfriend, let's call her Anna, for a little over 2 years. Things were good at the start, like, too good. She was charming, funny, and she always said I was the first guy she could really talk to. That made me feel special, like I was actually different from every other guy she'd dated before. But over the past few months, I started noticing little cracks. Nothing huge at first, just the way she'd suddenly change the topic if I asked about her day. Or how her phone, which used to sit face up on the table, was suddenly always face down. Those things alone might not have meant anything. But you know when your gut keeps nudging you? Like a little alarm you want to ignore, but can't? The first real sign of trouble hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't even dramatic. It was during dinner. We were eating takeout, and she slipped up. She mentioned a place she went the night before, but I knew she'd told me she was working late. I just laughed it off in the moment, but my stomach dropped. It felt like the air got sucked out of the room. That was the first time I realized something was off. After that dinner, I tried to brush it off. I told myself I was being paranoid, overthinking like I usually do. But the thing about suspicion is that once it's planted, it grows like a weed. The next week, she started canceling plans last minute. Always with a different excuse. Work, a headache, needing alone time. I wanted to believe her, but the timing was too perfect. We'd agree on a night together. I'd show up excited. And then boom. Suddenly she wasn't feeling well. What really made me pause was how she'd get defensive over the smallest questions. One night, I casually asked, "So, what did you end up doing today?" She snapped back, "Why are you interrogating me?" That word, interrogating, hit me like a slap. It wasn't even close to what I was doing. I just wanted to know about her day, like any boyfriend would. But she looked at me like I was some kind of control freak. Here's the kicker. Later that night, I saw a notification pop up on her phone. Some guy's name I didn't recognize. She quickly grabbed the phone and turned the screen off. My chest felt tight, but I didn't say anything. I didn't want to accuse her without proof. I didn't want to be that guy. So I just sat there, pretending to watch the movie we had on, while my thoughts were spiraling. That was the moment the seed of doubt turned into a storm. So, yeah, that night with the phone notification kept replaying in my head. I tried to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe a coworker, maybe a friend I just hadn't met. But my gut wouldn't shut up. The breaking point came a few days later. Anna left her laptop open on the couch while she went to shower. I swear, I wasn't planning on snooping. I actually hate that stuff. But the screen lit up with a message. It wasn't even subtle. The guy had texted. "Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about it." I froze. My heart was pounding so loud I swear I could hear it echoing in the room. My hands started shaking, but at the same time, I felt weirdly calm, like my body just went into autopilot. I didn't click on anything. Didn't scroll. Didn't need to. That one line told me everything. When she came back, towel around her hair, I must have looked like a ghost because she immediately asked, "What's wrong?" And I just sat there, staring at her, laptop still glowing on the couch. I said, "Whose guy's name?" Her face changed instantly. First shock, then panic, then this quick flicker of anger like how dare you look at my stuff. But she didn't answer. She just stood there, frozen, like maybe if she said nothing, it would all go away. That silence. It hurt more than the message itself. I wish I could say she immediately came clean, but nope. She went into full damage control mode. First words out of her mouth were, "Why were you looking at my laptop?" Not, "I can explain," or even, "It's not what it looks like." Just straight up deflection. I laughed, like an actual laugh, the kind that comes out when you're so angry you can't even process it. I said, "That's what you're worried about? Not the fact that you've been sneaking around with someone else?" Her eyes narrowed, and then she switched gears. "It's not like that. He's just a friend. You're twisting things." A friend? A friend who says last night was amazing? My blood was boiling, but at the same time, I felt this wave of sadness wash over me. It's like I was watching the person I thought I knew just disintegrate in front of me. I pressed her again, and that's when she snapped. "Fine. Yes, we kissed. But that's it. You're blowing this way out of proportion." And hearing that, man, it was like my chest collapsed. Kiss. Just a kiss? The message on her laptop said otherwise, but the fact she thought minimizing it would somehow make it better made me feel even smaller. I remember sitting there thinking, this is it. The person I trusted the most is capable of lying right to my face without even flinching. I couldn't let it go at just a kiss. My voice was shaking, but I pushed. If it was only a kiss, why would he text you about last night being amazing? What part of that sounds like a kiss to you? She froze again. You know when someone's mind is scrambling for the next lie? That's exactly what I saw in her eyes. And that's when I realized I wasn't talking to the girl I thought I knew. I was talking to someone who was already halfway out of the relationship, desperate to cover her tracks. Finally, she muttered, "Okay, we hooked up once." But it didn't mean anything. Those words hit like a freight train. Didn't mean anything. As if my trust, my time, my love, all of it could be brushed aside with a shrug. I remember just sitting there, staring at her, while my brain ran through every moment we'd had together. Every "I love you." Every late-night conversation where she swore I was her person. And now this. I asked her point blank, "How long?" She hesitated, then quietly said, "A few months." That was it. My stomach dropped. A few months. Meaning all those canceled plans, all the headaches, all the defensiveness, it all lined up. The puzzle pieces clicked into place, and I hated the picture they made. Shock gave way to anger. My voice cracked when I said, "Do you have any idea what you've done to me? To us?" And her response? "I didn't mean to hurt you." I swear, that line is the cruelest thing cheaters say. Because they do mean to. Maybe not the pain part, but the betrayal? That's intentional. The argument exploded after that. I couldn't hold it in anymore. My voice got louder, angrier, while hers stayed in that cold, almost dismissive tone. I said, "You've been lying to my face for months, Anna. Months. Do you know how stupid that makes me feel?" She fired back, "You don't get it. I didn't plan for this to happen. He just understands me in ways you don't." That cut deeper than the confession itself. Understands me in ways you don't. Like all the nights I stayed up with her when she cried about work didn't count. Like the times I drove across town just to bring her soup when she was sick were meaningless. I snapped. So what was I then? A placeholder? A babysitter until something better came along? She rolled her eyes. "You're twisting my words again. This isn't black and white." That was the moment I lost it. I stood up, shaking, pacing the room. I couldn't even look at her. My hands were balled into fists, not because I'd ever hurt her, but because I had to physically hold myself together. I remember yelling, "Don't you dare make me feel crazy for asking for the bare minimum. Honesty. Loyalty. Was that really too much to ask?" Her face went blank, like she'd already checked out. And that realization crushed me even more than the betrayal. It wasn't just about what she did. It was that she didn't even care enough to fight for us. That was the moment I knew. Something between us had died, and no amount of excuses was going to bring it back. I couldn't stay in that apartment another second. My chest felt like it was caving in, like the walls themselves were pressing against me. I grabbed my jacket and keys without even thinking, and she had the nerve to say, "Where are you going?" "We're not done talking." I turned and looked at her, really looked at her, and it hit me how much of a stranger she felt in that moment. I said, "We were done the second you decided I wasn't enough." I walked out. The night air was cold, sharp, and for a split second, I thought it might clear my head. Instead, the weight in my chest just grew heavier. I got in my car, sat there gripping the steering wheel, and the tears just came. I hadn't cried like that in years. Ugly, gasping sobs I couldn't control. I ended up driving aimlessly for hours. The city lights blurred, my phone buzzing nonstop with her texts. First it was, "I'm sorry." Then, "Please come back." Then, when I didn't answer, "You're overreacting. We can work through this." Overreacting. She called me overreacting. That word burned. It was like gasoline on the fire already eating me alive. How do you call betrayal an overreaction? I finally pulled into an empty parking lot, turned off the engine, and just sat there in silence. I stared at my phone, her name lighting up the screen, and for the first time, I didn't feel the urge to answer. I just felt numb. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. The thought of walking back into that apartment, seeing her face, smelling her perfume on the couch, it made my stomach turn. Instead, I drove to my buddy Mark's place. He's been my best friend since high school, The guy who knows me better than anyone. I sat in my car outside his house for a good 20 minutes, debating whether to knock. It was 2 a.m., and I hated the idea of dragging him into my mess. But eventually, I just couldn't sit there anymore. I knocked, and when he opened the door, one look at my face, and he didn't even ask. Just said, "Come in." I sat on his couch, hands shaking, trying to explain everything. The words felt jagged, broken, like they didn't want to come out. Finally, I just blurted it. "She's been cheating on me." Mark went quiet for a second. Then he shook his head and muttered, "Man, I always had a bad feeling about her." That hit me hard. Always had a bad feeling. Meaning what? Did everyone else see the cracks I missed? Was I that blind, that desperate to believe in her? I broke down again. Mark just sat there, letting me fall apart. No judgment. No, I told you so. Just quiet support. At one point he said something I'll never forget. "You didn't deserve this. Don't let her make you feel like you did." And in that moment, I realized how badly I'd been gaslit. All those times she made me feel paranoid, controlling, or insecure, it wasn't me. It was her covering her tracks. That realization hurt almost as much as the betrayal itself. The next morning, reality hit like a freight train. I woke up on Mark's couch with a splitting headache and this crushing weight in my chest that reminded me. This wasn't a nightmare. It was real. My phone was still buzzing with messages from her. Some apologetic, some defensive, some almost manipulative. One of them read, "If you really loved me, you'd forgive me. Everyone makes mistakes." That line made my blood boil. If you really loved me? As if her betrayal was now my responsibility to fix. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Instead, I just sat there staring at the screen, trying to process everything. I felt like I was grieving, not just the relationship, but the version of her I thought I knew. Around noon, I finally told Mark I needed to go back. Not to reconcile, but to face it head on. To get my stuff and make it clear I wasn't playing this game anymore. The drive there was brutal. My stomach was in knots, my hands sweating on the steering wheel. I kept running through possible scenarios in my head. Would she cry? Beg? Yell? Pretend nothing happened? I didn't know which version of her I was walking into. When I finally walked through the door, she was sitting on the couch, looking small and nervous. For a second, I almost felt pity. But then I remembered that message, and the pity evaporated. I told her straight, "I'm not here to fight. I'm here to get my things." Her face crumpled, and she jumped up, saying, "Wait. Please, we can work this out. I'll cut him off. I'll do whatever it takes." But the thing was, I didn't believe her anymore, and I think she could see that in my eyes. She followed me from room to room while I packed, like a shadow I couldn't shake. Every time I folded a shirt or zipped up a bag, she threw another plea at me. "I'll block him right now, see? It didn't mean anything. You mean everything to me. Don't throw away 2 years over one mistake." The words just bounced off me. I didn't even respond half the time. I was in this weird autopilot mode. Numb, detached, like my body was moving but my heart had checked out. Then came the guilt trip. "You know I've been struggling. You were supposed to be there for me. If you leave, you're abandoning me when I need you most." That one cut deep, I won't lie, because I had been there. Over and over. I gave her patience, love, support, and this was how she repaid me. I finally turned to her and said, "Stop. Just stop. You don't get to cheat on me and then make me feel guilty for walking away. That's not love. That's manipulation." She went quiet for a second, then broke down sobbing. Full on, collapsing onto the floor, begging me not to go. And for the first time, I didn't feel the urge to comfort her. I just felt empty. It was in that moment I realized the relationship was already over. I wasn't leaving her. I was just catching up to reality. So I zipped up my last bag, looked at her one final time, and walked out. She was still crying on the floor when I closed the door behind me. The first few days after moving out were brutal. I felt like I was living in a fog. Every corner of my old apartment, every little thing reminded me of her. I'd catch myself reaching for my phone to text her, then remember, no, this isn't happening anymore. I started sleeping on the couch at Mark's place. Not because I wanted to, but because being alone in my apartment felt like stepping into a grave. I couldn't eat much, barely had the energy to shower. My friends checked in, but even their support couldn't fill the weird hollow inside me. Then came the unexpected twist. I found out through a mutual friend, someone who thought they were helping by being honest, that she'd been seeing him for months. Not just a fling, not just a mistake. Months. I won't lie, part of me wanted to lash out. Part of me wanted to confront her, scream until my throat went raw. But another part, the part that had been quietly growing stronger over the last few days, knew that wasn't me anymore. I wasn't that person who let betrayal define me. Instead, I focused on small things. Work, running, reconnecting with friends. Every time I felt the old hurt bubbling up, I told myself, you survived this. You will survive everything else too. That's when I realized something important. Pain doesn't disappear overnight, but it shapes you. It teaches you boundaries. It teaches you what, and who, you truly deserve. A few weeks later, I started to feel lighter. Not completely okay, don't get me wrong, but the sharp edge of betrayal had dulled. I threw myself into things I'd neglected, running trails I'd never explored, picking up old hobbies, even joining a local book club. It was like reclaiming pieces of myself I didn't even realize I'd lost. One evening, I ran into her at a coffee shop. My heart skipped, and for a second, I felt that old ache, that familiar mix of anger and longing. But then I noticed how differently I saw her now. No rose-colored glasses, just clear eyes and honest perspective. She smiled, tried to make small talk, maybe even subtly suggest we work things out. I sipped my coffee, nodded politely, and said, I hope you're happy, really. But we're done. It was simple, firm. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a real sense of control over my own life. I realized I didn't need her apology, her validation, or her guilt to move on. I just needed to respect myself enough to walk away. Walking out of that coffee shop, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Peace. Not the naive, fleeting peace I once imagined in that relationship, but a grounded, hard-earned peace that comes from knowing you've survived betrayal and come out stronger. In the weeks that followed, I started reflecting on what had actually happened, not just the betrayal itself, but the patterns I'd ignored. I realized I had been compromising too much, excusing little red flags because I wanted the relationship to work. I'd been giving love to someone who didn't respect it, and that wasn't my fault. I journaled a lot, trying to make sense of my emotions. One entry struck me. Trust is earned, not assumed. And love shouldn't feel like walking on broken glass. That sentence became my mantra. Every time I doubted myself or wondered if I'd ever feel that kind of connection again, I repeated it in my head. I also started opening up to friends more, not just about the breakup, but about my feelings, my mistakes, my fears. Vulnerability felt terrifying at first, but it became liberating. I realized that hiding pain or pretending I was fine only trapped me in the past. Slowly, life felt like mine again. I wasn't running from memories. I was learning from them. I wasn't angry all the time. I was choosing where to invest my energy. And I wasn't lonely. I had a support system that reminded me I wasn't defined by someone else's betrayal. By this point, I wasn't rushing into anything. I realized that before I could love someone else, I needed to fully own my own life. I started going out more, meeting new people, but not with the desperation to fill a void, just curiosity, friendship, and genuine connection. There were moments of doubt, of course. Sometimes I'd see a couple holding hands or hear a love song and feel that familiar pang of loss. But instead of letting it spiral into self-pity, I reminded myself, that was a chapter, not your whole story. I also noticed subtle changes in myself. I spoke up more, set boundaries earlier, and trusted my instincts instead of brushing off warning signs. Little victories, like saying no when I wanted to, or being honest about my feelings, felt huge. And then one evening, I caught myself laughing freely at a joke from someone I'd just met, feeling that light, unburdened joy I hadn't experienced in months. I realized I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living again. I wasn't defined by her betrayal. I wasn't broken. I was stronger, wiser, ready to write the next chapter, without fear of repeating the same mistakes. Looking back now, it all feels like a painful but necessary lesson. Betrayal is brutal. It shakes your trust, your confidence, your sense of self, but it also forces clarity. I learned that love isn't about blind forgiveness or endless compromise. It's about respect, honesty, and shared values. Without those, It doesn't matter how much you care, you're setting yourself up for heartbreak. I also realized the importance of boundaries. Saying enough doesn't make you cruel, it makes you human. Walking away from someone who hurts you is not failure, it's courage. And healing isn't linear. Some days you'll feel strong, other days weak, but every step forward counts. My advice to anyone going through something similar: honor your feelings, don't ignore red flags, and give yourself permission to leave what no longer serves you. Surround yourself with people who truly support you, and focus on rediscovering yourself before chasing someone else's approval. I still think about her sometimes, but now it's different. There's no anger, no desperation, just a quiet understanding that our story ended for a reason, and that reason gave me the chance to rebuild myself. And honestly, I wouldn't trade that growth for anything. Life goes on, stronger than before, and so do you.